Good morning, everyone. I'm Dina Akasha, and I am back with my educational videos. And today, inshallah, we are going to discuss probability. Okay. Now, I guess that probability will not just take one video. I guess it's going to take 3 or 4 videos, and I'll try and explain it in every single detail possible. Now, let's just first start. If you have my resources, you can open the notes to this page over here, which is page number 272 in the notes. Okay. Now we're going to start with an introduction of probability, and I'm sure that all of you aslan know what is the rule of probability and how do I use it. Now this table over here, as you can see, فيها vocabulary words مهمة جدا that you have to know. طبعا احنا we're try and discuss all these words throughout the videos, مش فيديو واحد بس. أول حاجة هبتدي بيها the rule of probability, which I guess most of you know, which is the number of outcomes divided by the total frequency. بس الأول خلينا بس نأكد على كلمة frequency. What do I mean by the word frequency? يعني إيه كلمة frequency? Frequency simply means مثلا let's assume I have a box, and inside this box I have 3 black balls and I have 4 white, for example. But inside the box, I have a total of 7 balls. The frequency simply means the number of items, the number of values, the number of whatever. فمثلا كل البني آدمين عندهم 2 hands, and in every hand we have 5 fingers. So what is the frequency of the fingers in the hands? We have 10 fingers. فكلمة frequency معناها number of items, number of values, whatever. So the frequency in this box, the frequency here is equal to كام؟ To 7. The frequency is equal to 7. طبعا the frequency is represented by the letter N, بس ال N دي احنا بنستعملها أكتر في الأسئلة بتاعت ال statistics. فخلينا ناخد a very very simple example, and let's remember together what is the rule of the probability اللي هو ده. ودي أول حاجة هتناقش فيها في التيبل بتاعتنا. فلو أنا جيت قلت لكم هنا مثلا for example, what is the probability of picking a black ball? What is the probability of picking a black ball? Probability ببساطة شديدة جدا معناها from the total, how many black do we have? From the total frequency, how many black do we have? So the probability of the black is 3/7. من السبعة دول في 3 black. طيب لو أنا جيت قلت لكم what is the probability of the white؟ تمام؟ from the 7, how many white do we have? As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4. So from the total, how many white do we have? And 4. فالprobability is 4/7. Okay. probability معناها مثلا يعني ايه probability of white؟ يعني انا ممكن اخد اي واحدة من دول. فانا عندي 4 options white، اختار منهم ايه. طبعا this is a very basic rule that I'm sure that most of you know. طبعا ومن هنا هنأكد على معلومة إنه the sum of the probabilities of any question must be equal to 1. The maximum probability is always 1, which is 100%. يعني ما ينفعش أكون أنا بحل مسألة probability والإجابة تطلع لي more than 1. It doesn't make sense. أو مثلا أكون بحل والإجابة تطلع لي negative. Again, this is incorrect. So we just discussed the rule, and we discussed that the maximum value of probability is 1. Now the questions might be in fraction form, might be in decimal form, might be in percentage form, بس احنا شغلنا في الأو level معظمه بيبقى fraction and decimal. So this is the first thing that I wanted you to remember. Now, from this table, I'm going to move on to these 2 words over here, fair and biased. لأنه إحنا هندخل على أنواع أسئلة fair and biased. fair and biased يعني إيه؟ يقول لي مثلا this is a fair dice أو this is a fair spinner، ويعني إيه يقول لي biased. يعني for example زي ما أنا بشرحها دايما مثلا هنا في المدرسة بشرحها دايما كده. لو أنا جبت واحدة pan super supreme عليها all the toppings that we love, and I decided to be fair وأنا بقسم البيتزا بتاعتي, meaning what? I am going to divide it equally بالشكل ده. So again, I ordered a large pan pizza with all the toppings that we all love, and I decided to divide it equally. Now, as you can see, this pizza is divided into 4 sectors. Now, these 4 sectors are the same, okay? And the probability of every sector would be 1 over 4. السؤال بقى، هل هنا كلنا هناكل وهنبقى مبسوطين؟ يس. هل دي تقسيمة ترضي ربنا؟ ترضي ربنا. كل واحد أخذ حتة قد التانية. So whenever we read the word fair in any question, this means that the probabilities are the same. طيب what if أنا بني آدمة مفجوعة وقلت لأ، يعني أنا اللي جايبة البيتزا، ليه الناس كلها تاكل زيي؟ أنا هاخد حتة كبيرة وهديهم بقى الباقي. Okay, so this is going to be my share. This is Miss Dina's share. And then this is the share of everyone else. تمام؟ Now, هل دي تقسيمة كلنا هنبقى واكلين ومبسوطين ولا أنا بس اللي هبقى مبسوطة؟ لا، just me. Maybe because I'm the teacher بقى، فأنا شايفة إن أنا من حقي آخد أكبر حتة. فدي تقسيمة biased, or in other words بايظة. طبعا we don't use the word بايظة، أنا بس علشان بحاول أسهل لكم الدنيا شوية. When the question says that this is a biased spinner or a biased pizza or whatever, it means that the probabilities are different. It means that the probabilities are different. So we discussed the rule. We said that the maximum probability, that sum of probabilities must add up to 1. قلنا يعني ايه fair و biased. اللي هنتناقش فيه دلوقتي or، بس هنعملها عن طريق سؤال، و or يعني plus as you can see over here. And this very important rule اللي هنشرحها برضو واحنا بنحل دلوقتي أسئلة مع بعض. Now, probability أنواع أسئلة, types of questions. Okay, now we have the table questions, and this is, I guess, going to be video number 1. And then we have the tree diagram questions. And I guess tree diagram questions will be divided into 2 videos. And then we have the word problems and the challenging questions, whatever but you want to name it. يعني. For this video, we're just going to discuss the table questions. Now, to be able to discuss the table questions, we will use the notes, if you have my notes, and we will use classified part 2. We will use classified part 2. So let's scroll down. بيهنج أحيانا. Let's scroll down to this page over here, which is page number, as you can see, 274 in the notes. Page 274 in the notes. And let's see the first type of questions, the table questions. The table questions. The table questions are quite easy, بس هنشوف برضو أنواع الأسئلة. هنا بيقول لي the diagram shows a pointer which spins about the center of a fixed disk. لو انتوا بتتفرجوا على التلفزيون، في برنامج حلو جدا انا بحب اتفرج عليه وبقعد برضو احاول دايما اقول الاجابات، برنامج اسمه العباقرة. بيجيبوا كده طلبة ويقعدوا يسألوهم، وفي بتاعة كده فيها سهم كده في النص بتلف، وبعد كده حسب بقى قوة اللفة ده يقف فين. ده السبينر او البوينتر، يعني بوينتر سبينر. اوكي، so this is the spinner. اوكي، زي بتاع العباقرة بالظبط، فهو بيلف. Now, as I always tell you يا جماعة in math, you do not assume something. يعني أنا ما باخدش حاجة شكلها بالشكل. I know this looks biased. Okay. And again, why is it biased? It's biased, as you can see, because if I actually decide to color the sectors, هتلاقوا إنه ده اسمه sector يا ولاد، لو أنتوا بس مش عارفين. Okay, now there's a video about 2D shapes. This is called the sector, اللي هو the area between 2 radii. Now, as you can see, the sectors of this circle, of this spinner or of this pointer, they're not the same. فده معناه ايه؟ ده معناه انه the probabilities are different. The probabilities are different. حتى هنا اهو باينين. يعني طبعا the biggest sector, as you can see, is the one, so it should have the highest probability. Okay. هنا بيقول لي ايه بقى في السؤال ده؟ بيقول لي when the pointer is spun, it stops on any of these numbers. فانا as you can see, I have 4 numbers. Okay. Let's see بقى هنا what does the question say، لانه التable questions بتبقى لذيذة قوي. هنا بيقول لي في السؤال ماجدة is going to spin the pointer once, work out the probability that it will land on 4. Now before we start دايما بحب أأكد على حاجة، إنه عشان كده أنا يمكن فيديوهاتي بتبقى طويلة شوية عشان بحب تفهموا كويس. هنا مديني probability بتاعت ال1 ومديني probability بتاعت ال2 ومديني probability بتاعت ال3. Now I need to ask anyone, what do I mean that probability of 1 is 0.35? طبعا I always get these answers. يعني 35%. يعني يا مس 0.35. ايوه، يعني انا لو جالي حد دلوقتي بيقول لي، حد بسيط مش mathematician زي حالتنا كده، وبيقول لي يعني إيه الرقم ده؟ This is what I want you to understand. يعني إيه probability of 1, 0.35? What do I mean by this decimal? Now, if I write this as a fraction, it would change into 35 over 100. This means what? This means لو السبينر بتاعي ده لفيته 100 times, 35 times it will stop on the 1. لو البوينتر ده لفيناه 100 مرة 35 مرة هيقف على ال1. طيب تاني، يعني ايه probability of 2 is 0.16. Again, if I change this into a fraction, it would be 16 over 100. So if I spin my pointer a total of 100 times, 16 times it will land on 2. ده معناه if again و probability يا جماعة is not a fact. دي حاجة ممكن تحصل وممكن ما تحصلش. Okay. Now the first question, I guess أصلا most of you did the first question. The first question says, find the probability of the 4. And as you can see, Magda is going to spin the pointer once. Now, how do I deal with table questions? Whenever you're dealing with table questions, the sum of the highlighted must always be equal to 1. The sum of the highlighted must always be equal to 1. Now, what really matters for us يا جماعة في ال O level عموما الsteps يا حبايبي مهمة جدا جدا جدا. And as I always say, quality over quantity. مش لازم 15 مليون step. ممكن تبقى step فيها كل حاجة. So, how do I find the probability of 4, I'm sorry, since the sum is 1, فلو أنا عملت 1 minus the probability of the 1 plus the probability of the 2 plus the probability of the 3, I will get the probability of the 4. And please, a simple advice. If the question is in the decimal form, keep it as a decimal. If the question is in a fraction form, keep it as a fraction. Keep it as a fraction. So the first thing that we learned over here is that if you wish to complete a table, you simply, the highlighted numbers, they sum up to 1, هنعمل 1 minus the probabilities, and we get the probability of the 4. And as you can see, in this table, we only have one unknown. تمام؟ طيب نيجي على السؤال اللي وراه. Work out the probability that the pointer will stop على ال1 or at 3. Now, if you go back to the table over here, I have introduced the word or. The word or means plus. The word or means plus. يعني أنا عايزة أعرف لو أنا لفيت البتاع ده 100 مرة كم مرة تقف على 1 أو على 3. So basically, whenever you're dealing with or, remember that or is changed to addition. And again, or is always used when the item or when the pointer is spun once. يعني لما الحاجة بتحصل مرة واحدة. لأنه إحنا في الفيديوز اللي بعد كده هنشوف if we're going to do it twice. Work out the probability that it will stop on 1 or 3. Simply what I do in these questions, I take the probability of the 1 and I add to it the probability of the 3. So the 1 is 0.35, the probability يعني of the 1. The 3 is 0.27, and then I just add them. So 0.35 plus 0.27, هتطلع ال probabilities is 0.62. 0.62. Now let's look back at this question, لأنه this question is very important وأنا هشرحه بطريقتين وهنرجع للرول بتاعته اللي موجودة عندنا في التابل. عمر بقى is going to spin the pointer 75 times. Work out an estimate for the number of times the pointer it will stop onto. طيب, when the question says work out an estimate for the number of times, does that mean I am required to find probability ولا find frequency? لا, أنا هنا I want frequency. And please يا جماعة, remember that the frequency is a number, is a value. Probability is usually a fraction or a decimal. Okay, يعني probability ما ينفعش تبقى 1.2 مثلا. Find frequency. يبقى أنا هنا عايزة frequency في السؤال ده. So let's do it بطريقتين علشان نفهم. إحنا دلوقتي بنتناقش على الرقم 2. Now from the table, let me just scroll up. The probability of the 2 from the table is 0.16. Let's do it the longer way for us to understand. And طبعا هنا I'm going to do the shortcut. نيجي بقى لنفس الحكاية. يعني ايه probability of 2 0.16؟ معناها انه if I change 0.16 it would be 16 over 100 and there's no need to simplify يا جماعة, no need to find the simplest form. معناها if I spin the spinner 100 times, 16 times it will stop on the number 2. تمام؟ ده معناها. طيب عمر is going to spin the pointer 75 times. So how many times is it going to land on 2? وطبعا أنا بحب وبعشق الكروس multiplication. So again, whenever يا حبايبي you're dealing with cross multiplication, always start by the fact that you have in the question. This is the fact that I know. دي معلومة مؤكدة أنا عارفاها على ال2. إنه من ال100 مرة 16 مرة it will land on 2. طيب من ال 75 times how many times it will land on 2 and then I cross. And by the way يا حبايبي, this is a valid method of solving. يعني if you solve like this in the exam no one can say anything. So 16 times 75 على 100 واحسبها. Okay, divide 100 هتطلع 12 times. And again لو واخدين بالكم انا بقول لي find an estimate, لانه انا كل في الاخر يا جماعه البروبابيلتي مش حاجه مؤكده يعني. So 12 times it will land on 2. This is a very يعني ايه method تحترم واحنا بنحل مسائل probability. But what is the shortcut؟ ما لو انا خدت بالي يا جماعه هنا 16 على 100, ما هو this is the probability of the 2. So basically if I want to find frequency, I can take the probability of the 2, multiply immediately by the total frequency given in the question. ما هو again 16 على 100 دي ما هي دي 0.16. فأنا in these sort of questions when frequency is required, again when frequency is required, you can take the probability of the item immediately and multiply by the frequency given in the question, and I will get the same answer. And again, it is totally up to you which method to use. في مسائل بتنفع فيها دي وفي مسائل بتنفع فيها دي. لأنه كان في مسألة على ما أتذكر كان بيقول له البروبابيلتي بتاعت ال2 كذا والبروبابيلتي بتاعت ال3 كذا، يعني مش فاكراها صراحة قوي بس خليني أديكم فكرتها كده سريعا. كان مديني برضو table، نعمل another page as far as I remember. يعني كان مديني تيبل هتلاقوها في الناس اللي بتشتغل معايا او معاهم كتبي، هتلاقوها تقريبا في classified part 4 مثلا 2 و 3، ومديله مثلا البروبابيلتي بتاعت ال 3 ومديله مثلا البروبابيلتي بتاعت ال 2. حلو الكلام. وقايل له مثلا انه according to this probability مش عارفه السبينر ده وقف 70 مره على ال 3، طب كم مره هيقف هنا؟ فباي كروس you can find it على طول. حاجه كانت كده كانت موجوده تقريبا في classified part 4. ف that was an idea. فهنا طبعا I will have to use cross multiplication. ان انا I am given the number of times it lands on 3 and from this information I can find the number of times it lands on 2 using cross multiplication. ف يعني different ideas. عشان كده يا جماعه I introduced both methods. So طبعا this is a very basic stable question. خلاص احنا we don't need the notes anymore. We are going to move on to the classified part 2 وهنشوف different type of questions related to table، حاجات بقى ideas مختلفة. Okay, ف if you have my classified, this is classified part 2 as you can see هنا اهي. And this is page number كام يا ولاد؟ This is page number 188, classified part 2, page number 188. We are going to discuss different type of ideas related to table questions. بيقول لي هنا ايه بقى؟ Here is a biased five-sided spinner. Now, although it looks fair، يعني لو واخدين بالكم شكلها fair، لكن انا في الماث زي ما قلت لكم قبل كده ودايما بقول ما باخدش اي حاجه بالشكل. Please don't assume. ما شكلها فير اهو، اوكي شكلها فير، بس هو قال لي ايه؟ biased. وقلنا كلمة biased معناها different probabilities. Guys, if the question is fair, it will say it's fair. If the question is biased, it will say it is biased. Please don't assume anything وما تاخدوش حاجة بالشكل. هنا بيقول لي بقى when the spinner is spun, it can land on red, orange, yellow, green, or blue. Okay, and here are the probabilities أهو given in the question. What is the difference بقى between this question and the previous? As you can see, هنا I have two unknowns. المشكلة عندكم يا أولاد إنه إيه؟ إحنا دلوقتي أخدنا type 1 أخدنا مثلا table questions. The method of solving في ال table questions doesn't change. يعني إحنا من شوية قلنا إيه؟ قلنا the sum is 1. إيه يا مس بس هنا في two unknowns. So what؟ ما يعني فرقت في إيه؟ The sum is still 1. This doesn't change. Now, I don't want you to panic يا جماعة. فبليز حاولوا دايما تبقوا open to ideas, different ideas. Okay, فأنا I know that the sum is 1. وزي ما بقول لكم دايما يا حبايبي إيه؟ أي مسألة ما فأنتوا حاسين إن أنتوا مش عارفين تبتدوها إزاي. Always ask yourselves. إيه اللي أقدر أعمله؟ إيه المعلومة اللي أنا عارفاها هنا؟ I know that the sum of the highlighted yellow is equal to 1. So step number 1 immediately, حتى لو أنا مش فاهمة حاجة في حياتي، إن أنا هعمل 1 minus the red, the orange, with the yellow. So when I subtract 0.4, طبعا I'm using my calculator علشان زي ما أنا بقول don't use your mental skills please. وأنا كمان صراحة I don't use my mental skills. طلع لي 0.3. So when I subtracted the maximum value of probability, sorry, when I subtracted these from the 1, I will get 0.3. The thing is, this 0.3 is the sum of the probability of the green and the probability of the blue. أو sorry مش and, or. يعني ال 0.3 دي هي ال probability بتاعت الجرين or البلو. لازم يكون مديني معلومة الاكزامينر على البلو والجرين. هنا بقى بيقول لي ايه؟ let's look بقى. The probability of the green is the same as the probability of the blue. So I started بإيه اللي أنا عارفاه, and then I am given a relationship in the question between the green and the blue. The examiner here generously said, they are equal. طبعا since they are equal, I can easily do what in step number 2? Take the 0.3, which is the sum of the green and the blue, and divide by 2. حلوة دي rhymes. Take the sum of the green and the blue, and since they are equal, divide by 2. Okay? حلوة دي عجبتني والله. And then divide by 2. So the probability of each is 0.15. أهو. فدي هنا هتبقى 0.15 ودي زيها 0.15. Work out the probability of the green. طلعنا the probability of the green. So this is a new idea أهو. Two unknowns are given. And the question says they are equal. So I did it very, very easily. Now, sometimes the questions are a bit يعني more challenging. هنشوف دلوقتي. Jenny spins the spinner 200 times. Work out an estimate for the number of times. Again, دي لسه عاملينها من شوية. أنا نسيت أوريكم الرول بتاعتها في النوتس هوريها لكم دلوقتي. Estimate for the number of times يعني هنا again أنا عايز frequency. أنا عايز frequency. Work out an estimate for the number of times it will land on red. Again, I'm going to explain it with both methods. ومفيش أي مشكلة يا جماعة. This is an educational video. حتى لو طويل شوية مش مشكلة. Now, what do I know about the red? على فكرة أنا ما بحبش الريد. يعني أنا مش من الشخصيات اللي بحب اللون الأحمر. The probability of the red is 0.4. Meaning, if I decide to change it to a fraction, it would be 4/10. Meaning, if the spinner is spun 10 times, 4 times it will land on red. So again, this is the total frequency. And this is the sub-frequency. إنه الred هيظهر 4 مرات. سوري دي 10 مش 10. مش 100. الred هيظهر from the 10 4 times. طيب, if I spin the spinner 200 times, how many times it will land on red? And then I cross. So 4 times 200 over 10. And then I do the math. 4 times 200 divide by 10 هتطلع 80 times. This is if you wish to use cross multiplication. Now, if you wish to use the shortcut, since it says work out an estimate for the number of times it will land on the red, you can simply take the probability of the red immediately, multiply by the total frequency. and definitely you will get the same answer. So 0.4 times 200, which is 80 times. So what did we introduce new in this question? We introduced the option in which you have two unknowns, as you can see. Now, whenever you have two unknowns, you must be given a keyword to tell you how will you find the value of each probability. Now, let's go back to the notes, Malish, and let me show you where is this rule in the table. هي دي. This one. أهي. Number of times is the probability multiplied by the total frequency. If you wish to write under this rule, إن أنا هنا إمتى بستعمل المسألة الرول دي؟ بستعملها when the examiner عايز frequency. When the question requires frequency. When the question requires frequency. Now let's go back and see another idea related to table. Okay? Let's see هنا. Again, and now we are in the same classified, page 189. Again, here is a biased four-sided spinner. Now you can do something actually. You can pause the video and solve this question over here. يعني حتى أهو, and I'm going to display it if you don't have the my notes. You can pause the video, solve the question, and then resume the video to see if your answer is correct. يعني you can do that. Here is a biased four-sided spinner. خلاص, we all know the word biased means that the probabilities are different. Although again it looks fair, بس احنا قلنا بناخدش حاجة بالشكل. The spinner is spun. The table shows the probabilities 1, 2, 3, and 4 are missing again. هنا, as you can see, I have two unknowns. عندي two unknowns. Okay. Let's see question number 1. Question number طبعا خلاص احنا عرفنا قلنا the method of solving the sum of the probabilities of a table is always equal to 1. The sum of probabilities of a table is equal to 1. First question says, work out the probability that it will land on 1 or 2. Or قلنا معناها plus. Okay? So how do I solve these questions? As you can see, it is graded out of 1 mark. So this is an easy question. How do I solve or questions? You take the probability of the 1. يعني شفتوا برضو انا ايه عماله بقول لكم ما بحبش الريد وقاعده بحل بالريد. يعني مش عارفه ليه المدرسين، يمكن عشان احنا زمان، انا بدرس بقالي سنين 20 سنه يمكن، كنا بقى نقعد نصحح دايما بالاحمر، فيمكن عشان كده متعودين على الاحمر. So you take the probability of the يا عم اكتب بقى. You take the probability of the 1, add to it the probability of the 2. So 0.15 plus 0.4, you get an answer of 0.55. And if you are wondering, Miss, can I change it to a fraction? Yes, you can, but there's no need. Don't يا جماعة، دايما حتى بقول للولاد كده, don't volunteer. هو السؤال دسم نخليه دسم. Okay? If you change it to a fraction, it won't be incorrect, بس يعني ملهاش لازمة. Okay, let's see. So I now have the 1 and the 2. Okay. The probability, أكيد بقى إيه الإكزامينر هيجي هنا. بيقول لي إيه بقى هنا؟ The probability that the spinner will land on the 3 is twice the probability that it will land on 4. Now, أنا دايما يا جماعة بقول لكم حتى في الماث, whenever there's the word is, so this is a key sentence. You can benefit from this key sentence. And as you can see, this is graded out of 2 marks. المسألة اللي فاتت قال لي they are equal, فعملناهم divide by 2 خلاص. فكرة الأو ليفل يا ولاد إيه؟ إن هو بيدخل الدروس في بعض. يعني هنا مدخل لي درس إيه؟ pause كده وأنسر. مدخل لي ratio. برافو. Ratio here is included in this question. So let's see. Always start by اللي أقدر أعمله. إيه اللي أقدر أنا أعمله هنا؟ I know that the maximum value of the probability is 1. دي معلومة مؤكدة. If I subtract from it this, لأنه ال 0.55 دي يا ولاد is what? Is the probability of the 1 or the 2. فالباقي اللي هو 0.45 الباقي اللي هو 0.45 ده إيه؟ ده ال probability بتاع ال 3 plus ال probability بتاعت ال 4. Okay? So if I subtract 0.55 from the maximum probability value, I will get 0.45, which is the 3 and or the 4 أو the sum of the 3 and the 4 the probabilities طبعا المسألة دي بتتحل بطريقتين. أنا هقول الطريقتين and it's totally up to you which to choose. Now, whenever it says twice, 3 times, double, means it's a ratio question. فأنا ممكن أحلها ratio question هتبقى سهلة جدا جدا جدا. And whenever you're solving ratio, and احنا we explained ratio and there is a video about ratio. Now, what information or what fact do I know about the probability of the 3 and the 4? هو قال لي هنا ايه؟ قال لي 3 is twice the 4, meaning what is the ratio between them? The ratio is 2 to 1. 3 twice 4. يعني انا مثلا لما اروح اقول مثلا لعمر بن اختي انا يا حبيبي معايا دبل الفلوس اللي معاك، فلو انا معايا 2 جنيه هو هيبقى معاه جنيه، فانا اللي معايا كتير، فال3 كبيره 2 to 1. So this is the ratio over here and this is a very easy method of solving اللي هو using a ratio, and I'll show you the second method if you wish to use it طبعا. Okay, now if you remember when we explained ratio before, sometimes you need to add a total column for the ratio, total ratio يعني, and sometimes you don't. Now in this question over here, will I add a total column for the ratio? Yes, I will. Why? Because I have the total probability as you can see over here. Yeah, but I started with the fact 3 is twice the 4. I wrote the ratio هنا as you can see. Why did I add a total ratio in the question? Because I have a total probability. And please remember that whenever we're solving ratio questions, there's a line for the ratio and then there's another line for the real values. Okay, so I wrote the ratio, I added the column of the total because I have the total probability. And now by cross multiplication, I can find the probability of the 4. By cross multiplication, I can find the probability of the 2. Now, what does the question require? The question says, work out the probability that it will land on 3. يبقى مين بالنسبة لي فاكس بقى ملوش لازمة؟ الفور ملهاش لازمة، هو عايز البروبابيلتي بتاعت بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بتاعت مين؟ بتاعت 3، فدي ملهاش لازمة فكروس كده. فهتبقى 2 طبعا هنا بقى this is the working out 2 times 0.45 over 3. 2 times 0.45 divide by 3. فطلعت كده البروبابيلتي بتاعت مين؟ طلعت البروبابيلتي بتاعت ال 3 اللي هي 0.3. تمام؟ 0.3. طيب if I wish to find the probability of the 4, now there are so many methods بقى that I can find the probability of the 4. ممكن بقى subtract، ممكن across، ممكن أعمل اللي أنا عايزاه. فال4 عندي هتطلع 0.15 which is equal to 1. So again, I calculated ال1 and the 2 or the 2 في السؤال الأولاني، عملت 1 minus to get the remaining which is the probability of the 3 plus the 4. I created the ratio. I did not create the ratio based on أي كلام. I created the ratio based on what the question says. The question says that the ratio, the 3 is twice the 4. So the ratio is 2 to 1. Why did we add a column for the total ratio? Because I have the total probability of them both. And then by cross multiplication, I was able easily to calculate the probability of the 3. And why did I do that? Because the examiner required to calculate the probability of the 3. If you wish to find the probability of the 4, you can just subtract from the table, you can cross multiply. There are so many other methods to find the probability of the 4. نشوف بقى الميثود الثانية، أنا هقولها سريعا برضو هنا اللي هي algebraic method. Okay, the algebraic method. Now the question here says, now when we did 1 minus 0.55, I ended up with 0.45, which is the probability of the 3 and the 4. The probability of the 3, sorry, plus the probability of the 4, okay, was 0.45. Now the question says the 3 is twice the 4. Now if I wish to create an equation with this matter, and if you wish to use symbols for the unknown, always start by the smaller value. Now since the question says that the 3 is twice the 4, then the smaller probability is the 4. So always start by labeling the smaller. فمثلا I will label the small probability as X. So if the probability of the 4 is X and 3 is twice the 4, so what would the 3 be? 2X. So X and 2X. The sum of these two is equal to كام؟ 0.45. And this is again a valid method برضو يعني نقدر نحل كده. فدي هتبقى هنا 3x equals to 0.45 and then find the value of the x. 0.45 divided by 3 which is 0 ايه ده؟ لا انا عملتها times. 0.35 divided by 3 which is 0.15. طلعت ال value of the x and خلاص أنا already I know that the probability of the 4 is the x, which is 0.15, and the probability of the 3 is twice the x. So I will multiply 2 times 0.15 to get the same answer, which is 0.3. So this is the algebraic method, or this is the algebraic approach of solving. And again, it is totally up to you how to solve. I vote for the ratio. بس في الآخر كل واحد برضه حر هو بيحب يحل ازاي. تمام. Let's move on to question number C and see what is this question requires. So in this question we discussed a new idea as you can see اللي هي if there is a ratio. Daljit is going to I love the names بجد they are so creative with the names. Daljit جنسيته ايه دالجيت؟ احنا عندنا هنا ايه الاسامي؟ مفيش غير دالجيت. طيب Daljit is going to spin the I think Daljit might be Asian. Daljit is going to spin the spinner 160 times, work out an estimate for the number of times it lands on 2. Again, in this question over here, the frequency is required. أنا عايزة frequency هنا في المسألة دي. ويا ريت والنبي بس عليها 2 marks. ما ال 2 marks على إيه؟ ال 2 marks على الستep والفاينل answer. فيا ريت بلاش بس إيه نختصر. 2 marks, so 1 step and the final answer. So how do I find the frequency? You will take the probability of the 2 and multiply by the number of times, which is 160. صح? Probability of 2 is 0.4. So 0.4 times 160, which is كام? 64, as you can see, 64. تمام. Let's move on to another table. And why do I want زي ما اتفقنا يا جماعة احنا عندنا التوتال لسه في كام سؤال كمان أنا عايزة أعملهم. هما 2 more. عشان كده بقول لكم ال probability مش هينفع تتعمل في فيديو واحد. هعملها في كذا فيديو إن شاء الله. Okay. Now, this is in the same classified, page 190. And why did I choose to do this question? Because, as you can see, it's an algebraic question. طبعا دايما بيحصل بقى توتر وانهيار لما المسألة تقلب algebra. ليه؟ What applies on numbers applies on algebra. No difference whatsoever يا جماعة. No difference whatsoever. And again, start with the fact. Here is a biased 5-sided spinner. And I think خلاص بقى you all know what do I mean by the word biased. Biased يعني probabilities are different. Jack is going to spin the spinner once. The table shows information about the probabilities, and these are the colors that we have: red, blue, black, white, and green. Work out the probability that it lands on red. Work out the probability that it lands on red. برضو the color that I don't like. مش عارفة ايه فكرتهم هم مع الأحمر ده. ما اعرفش ليه ما بحبش الأحمر. Okay, so that's the red. اهو نستعمل أحمر كمان. That means that I am required to find the x. Please don't panic and remember the method of solving. The method of solving says what? The sum is equal to 1. The sum of the probabilities is equal to 1. يا miss بس دول in terms of x, so what? عادي. يبقى the red plus the blue plus the black plus the white plus the green. Okay? And the sum is كام? 1. So as you can see, here we created an equation. Now, what is so miserable about this equation? Absolutely nothing. You can combine 1 plus 2, 3, 3 plus 3, 6, 7, and 8. So this combines or simplifies into 8x equals 1 over 8. 8x equals to 1. Okay, I simplified the left hand side. عملت دول كلهم plus بعض. وبعد كده بقى خلاص هنا I can easily find the value of the x, which is كام؟ 1 على 8. طيب طلعت ال x. Let's assume بقى دلوقتي I want to find the probabilities of each. The red is the x, which is 1 على 8. The blue is 2x, which is 2 times 1 على 8. البلاك is 3x which is 3 times 1 على 8. الوايت is 1 على 8 which is the x and the green is 1 على 8. Again, if you wish to change to decimal مفيش ما يمنع. If you wish to simplify مفيش ما يمنع. Okay? it is totally up to you. بس please don't change to decimal لو كان decimal طويل سخيف وكل واحد يعمل rounding على مزاجه. علشان كده أنا لا أفضل موضوع الديسيمال ده. بس أنا هنا if I decide طبعا هو قال لي work out the probability of the red يعني the x is required. If I decide to change this into decimal هتبقى decimal لطيف 0.125. ده قصدي this is a terminating decimal يا ولاد if you know what is a terminating decimal. A terminating decimal is a decimal in which you can count the decimal places أو it ends زي ما انتم شايفين. ما حدش بقى يجي هنا بقى يفتكس ويعمل rounding. Why would you? Okay. So why is this question different? As you can see, because it's an algebraic question and no panicking. Don't panic because the question is algebraic. إذا أنا ما صليتش الفجر هصلي بعد الفيديو. طيب هنا بقى بيقول لي إيه؟ Malia spins the spinner 200 times. Work out an estimate for the number of times it lands on black. I guess بقى خلاص. You know the trick now. Yeah, دي لا مش عايزة الأحمر. Okay. I am discussing the black now. And I am required to find the frequency of the black if the spinner is spun 200 times. خلاص, I think by you know the rule. You take the probability of the black and you multiply by the total frequency given in this question. Now we did the black over here, 3x, which is 3 times 1 على 8. طبعا 3 times 1 على 8 is simplified into 3 over 8. And then you multiply by the frequency. And guys, please, as you can see, this is question graded out of 2 marks. So 3 على 8 times 200, you'll get an answer of 75. انا صراحه وانا بشرح ببقى مستبده جدا 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 مع الولاد اللي عندي في المدرسه اقول لهم انتوا لازم تحلوا بالطريقه دي ولازم تكتبوا الستبس دي ولازم مش عارفه ايه لانه at the end يا جماعه O level is a very important subject and you can get your star from the first time. But just listen to your teachers please. مش انا بس يعني اي teacher. Now the last question that we're going to do today finally and then we'll move on to another video in which we're going to discuss the tree diagrams and I guess and then I'm going to do 2 videos related to the tree. The last question over here نفس الكلام بيقول لي here is a biased 5-sided spinner. خلاص and I think we all know what do we mean by the word biased. ولو بصيتوا يا جماعة دايما هتلاقوا انه التيبل questions يعني بصوا ده question 3 واللي قبليه ده question 5 in the exam يعني قصدي في آخر السنة وده هنا question number 2. the table questions are supposed to be an easy questions فحرام ان هي تضيع مني. Probability is a very important topic. Why it's an important topic? Because تقريبا آخر السنة you get like 3 questions, 2 to 3 questions. A table question, tree diagram, and word problems. Word problems could be annoying. This is why I'm going to explain, inshallah, بإذن الله, probability in full details. Okay, so here again, you can pause the video, solve the question if you wish, and then check your answer at the end of the video. يعني you can resume the video again. هنا بيقول لي here is a biased 5-sided spinner. So biased again for the last time means the probabilities are different. Okay, when the spinner is spun, it can land on red, blue, green, brown, and yellow. The table gives probabilities of the red and the blue and the green. And as you can see بقى, the unknowns again now are 2 unknowns. Okay, هنا أنا عندي 2 unknowns as you can see. Please يا حبايبي يا حلوين, start with the fact. And again, what is the fact that we know about probabilities? We know about the probabilities that the sum is equal to 1. I know that some of you might think أنا حتى بقول للولاد كده ما تقروش السؤال كله على بعضه مرة واحدة. ممكن ناس تحس إن ده غلط بس أنا ليه بعمل كده وبقول كده؟ لأنه أحيانا لما الولاد بيقروا السؤال كله على بعضه بيتوتروا. They panic if they don't understand what the question requires. بس لو أنا قريته حتة حتة كده ومن كل حتة طلعت معلومة يعني break down the question to yourself صغروه على نفسيكوا you will be able to figure out and always trust your abilities. You can do it. Always trust that. فstart by the fact. أول step من غير ما أكمل قراية علشان حتى يا أولاد لو فكس مني سؤال ما أخدش فيه زيرو فبلاش نقراه زي كأنه بنقرا موضوع تعبير when the spinner is spun when the spinner الموضوع تعبير أهنج وأتوتر والسؤال يبوظ مني حتة حتة. Now start by finding the probability of the brown or the yellow. طبعا as we said 1 minus the red plus the blue plus the green I will definitely get the probability of the brown or the yellow. 1 minus 0.15 plus 0.26 plus 0.33. تكون بس كاتبه الارقام صح والنبي ما كنتش بس غلطانه في حاجه. طلع 0.26. 0.26. Okay. Now this 0.26 is the probability of the brown plus the probability of the yellow. Now لو واخدين بالكم يا جماعه من تدرج المسائل، اول حاجه كانوا equal، وبعد كده كان في ratio، وبعد كده دخلنا على algebraic. Now let's see. هنا بيقول لي when the spinner is spun once I must be given a relationship between the brown and the yellow. قال لي ايه بقى؟ The probability that it lands on the brown is 0.06 more than the yellow. This is not a ratio question. This is not a ratio question. Please يا جماعة ratio دايما always please remember that the ratio questions are دايما يقول لي مثلا twice, 3 times, 4 times، أو يقول لي the ratio is مثلا 3 to 4. لكن لما يقول لي more than, less than، تمام، decreased مش عارفة by، يبقى دي مش ratio. Okay. طيب how do I deal with these questions? And this is a pure algebraic question. This is an algebraic question. Algebraic question يعني ايه يا حبايبي؟ يعني I'm going to assume a letter X. ده معنى algebraic question. I'm going to assume a letter X and I am going to create an equation. ده معنى algebraic question. How do I start with algebraic questions? Start with the smaller quantity. ابتدي بالايتم الصغير. Start with the smaller quantity. قال لي البراون is 0.606 more than the yellow. More than the yellow. فdefinitely مين الصغير؟ اليالو. يبقى أنا عندي brown، خليني بس أكتبها هنا على جنب. عندي probability of brown و probability of yellow. بص automatically بختار الأحمر. سبحان الله. I'll choose another color. ها. ناخد ده. Okay. Again, when it says twice, 3 times, 4 times, when it says the ratio كذا كذا دي ratio. بس more than, less than, decreased by، يبقى ده equation, algebraic question. And when you're dealing with algebraic questions معناها you are going to assume a letter X and you're going to start by the smaller quantity. Here it says the brown is 0.06 more than the yellow. فمين الصغير؟ اليellow. So label the yellow as X. يا مس لازم X؟ لا, you can choose any other letter that you want. So start by the smaller quantity and then use the same letter for the bigger quantity. يعني ما نقلبش بقى على Y زي ما أنا في الأكس. البراون is 0.06 more than، ترجمة حرفية يا ولاد. more than يعني plus. يبقى البراون is اليلو وزود عليه 0.06. So algebraic questions start by assuming the letter X for the smaller quantity, use the same letter for the bigger quantity, and then create your equation. And of course, after you create your equation, you will solve it. What information do I know about the yellow and the brown? I know that the probabilities sum up to كام؟ 0.26. And how did I get that? From step number 1. تمام؟ يبقى اليلو الصغير ابتدينا بيه وسميناه X. البراون 0.06 more than the yellow. more معناها واضح وصريح. plus يعني بلاش إبداع. اوكي، فعملنا البراون يلو بلس 0.06. ايه معلوماتي عنهم هما الاثنين؟ انا اوريدي اصلا عارفه انه السم اوف البروبابيلتيز بتاعهم هما الاثنين is 0.26. ال 0.26 دي جت منين؟ جت من 1 minus اللي هنا. هكمل ازاي؟ هكملها الجبرا عادي جدا. Very very basic algebra question. خلاص you combine the x's together. X plus x is 2x. And then the 0.06 sorry remains as it is, equals to 0.26. Find the x in one step. As I always say مع quality over quantity. وادري هناك مع السلامة بالsubtraction. 0.26 minus 0.06. okay, over 2. تقريبا هتطلع 0.1. أنا كنت لسه بحل السؤال ده من كام يوم. 0.26 minus 0.06 over 2. هتطلع 0.1. So this is the x, which is the probability of مين؟ of the yellow. خدوا بالكم اليالو هي الx. So the yellow is 0.1. If I wish to find the brown, again, if I wish to find the brown, then I will substitute over here. So the brown will be 0.1 plus 0.06, which is 0.16. Now, if you wish to confirm, أنا حتى دلوقتي عايزة أتأكد، دول لازم يطلعوا 1. 0.15 plus 0.26, 0.33 plus 0.16 plus 0.1. تمام، لازم يطلعوا 1. طيب خلاص، يبقى احنا هنا كل ده احنا لسه هنا، واخدين بالكم يا اولاد؟ كل ده احنا لسه في الحته دي، ما كملتش لسه. عشان كده بقول لكم break down the question to yourself. نيجي بقى هنا بيقول لي ايه؟ Janine spins the spinner 150 times. Work out an estimate for the number of times it will land on yellow. خلاص, I think بقى we did this so many times. أنا هنا I am required to find frequency. Let me number the steps for you عشان you don't get lost. That was the steps. These are that is the order of the steps اهو. اوكي, البراون قلنا طلع فوق البيعة كده جبناه. أنا هنا اللي يخصني اليالو دلوقتي. Find the frequency it will land on yellow if Janine spins it 150 times. So the last step over here is that I will take the probability of the yellow, multiply by the total frequency, and then I will get the final answer, which is 15 times. I will get the final answer, which is 15 times. Now, this is part 1, probability table questions. I hope that this was useful to you. If you wish to solve more about table questions, you can use my classified part 4. You can use classified part 4. And of course, there's always, يا جماعة, the index. And in the index, you will find the pages that you require. Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you in the next probability video. Goodbye. Assalamu alaikum.